Hi, I'm Tinny from Mini Bowl Design, and today I'm going to talk about stoves. Now, that term stove, I kind of got away from with my stoves and started calling them CABs, C-A-B, Compact Alcohol Burner. And the reason I did that was because the word stove kind of lost its magic when people started calling tea light cans stoves. Actually, by the definition of a stove, whatever is burning has to be in an enclosed container. So a tea light container with the tea light taken out and some alcohol put in it and lit technically isn't a stove any more than a campfire is a stove. You know, if you're going to go that far, you can squirt alcohol out on a rock and light it and call that a stove. So that's not really a stove. Using the dictionary as a definition, and I think anybody reasonable would agree with that. Okay, so what is a stove? It has to be something that's completely enclosed, and then we run into a gray area there with wick stoves because they're not enclosed, but the wick stove is so different from anything else. It's kind of in a category of its own, like shark versus fish. So I'm going to call a wick stove a compact alcohol burner and try not to even call it a stove. Although on my website I have to call it stove because a lot of people that don't follow me, new customers, wouldn't know what cab is, so I'm kind of trapped there. But I consider the wick stoves to be a cab. So getting back to stove, stove has to be enclosed. So that's kind of a gray area, but like the BIOS is open top, but where the actual alcohol burns is between the two walls inside, so the burning part of it is enclosed. So I wanted to build, to get to my point, I wanted to build the world's lightest stove. So before I could do that, I had to get on the internet and find out what the lightest stove at present is. And after going over quite a bit of material, I came to the conclusion that Sergeant Rock's ion stove was the lightest stove. And that is, in a way, a wick stove. It's kind of a cross between a wick stove, and it's kind of enclosed and kind of not enclosed. But yeah, I call that a stove. And from what I read, it's 10.13 grams. That's light. So, in order to build the world's lightest stove, and as near as I could tell, that ion was the world's lightest stove, and that's what they advertised it as. So I had to be below 10.13 grams in order to have the world's lightest stove. Now, Sergeant Rock's stove weighs, I believe, 10.13 grams, but it requires a pot stand, so you kind of got to throw that in there because you can't use it without the pot stand. So if you go with 10.13 grams and no pot stand, I think that's lighter. But if you go below 10.13 grams and no pot stand, hands down, you've got the lightest stove. Okay, to make a long story short, I used to sell a stove called an Elite, and it was made from one energy drink can, in that the top of it was the top of the can, and the bottom of it was the bottom of the can. And the two pieces, the center was taken out, and then the outside was stretched and the top was slid into the bottom, and the piece in between that I take out was put inside with an ellipse and folded together to give you an inner and outer wall. So this is basically an entire, or a good part of, one Starbucks coffee 8.3 ounce double shot can. And it doesn't require a wick. It's so thin and so light, and the walls are so close together, you can just put the alcohol in and light it, and it'll prime itself in about between 5 and 20 seconds, usually 10 to 15 seconds. And its weight is, this is the good part, that's 9.8, that one's 9.7, this one's 9.8, this one's 9.7. This one's 9.7. So I think we can say pretty safely that this stove weighs 9.7 grams, which I believe, from what I've read, makes it the world's lightest alcohol backpacking stove. It is enclosed, and it doesn't require a pot stand. So if you have this and alcohol, that's all you need to boil 2 cups of water in about 6 minutes. And it does qualify as a stove, and at 9.5, 9.7 grams, I believe it is the world's lightest. So, that all being said, that's fine and dandy. You run into a problem here. The reason why I quit building this stove originally was it is extremely difficult to build. The bottom radius and the top radius are different, so that the inner liner has to be built somewhat like a cone. And to get those to match up and expand in the top and fit in the bottom, it's tough. So what I'm going to do with these is I'm going to put these in the store, and I'm not going to load the store. I'm only going to put in the store what I have, and when they're gone, they're gone. If I get a slow spell like I'm having right now, I'll build a few of them. But if I'm doing my normal $1 per minute thing, I'm going to lose money on these. I'm going to sell these for $15 a piece. I know that's a lot of money for something that small, but you know, the lighter things are, usually the more they cost when it comes to backpacking. And this is the world's lightest alcohol stove. And it works very well. I wouldn't use it on anything for a pot smaller than a Snow Peak 600. You can use it on a beer can pot, but a lot of the heat's going to go up by. I'm not a fan of that, but it can be used for that. And it does index quite nicely into the base of a beer can pot, but the flames kind of lick up around the edge a little bit. It's not the most efficient way to go. So I would stick with Snow Peak 600 or larger pot. I'm using it with a Snow Peak 700, and it works real well. So that's where I am on that. I ordered a bunch of stuff from Jack's Are Better. I got some beaners and some whoopee slings and some titanium tent stakes. And this little baby here is a lantern that hooks to the ridge line of your hammock at night for a night light. It'll either flash, and it's very bright. I think that's going to be very nice on my ridge line. I really like that. That's came from Jack's Are Better. It's an E-gear light. Takes 2 button cells in the bottom. Very nice. Got some more whoopee slings to hold my tarp down. Life is good. I also bought a pillow, and I'll be doing a review on that once I figure it out. So I'm Tinny from Mini Bull Design, maker of the world's lightest alcohol stove. Get out at night, take a friend, enjoy the great outdoors, and more important than anything, leave no trace, and have a really great day. Bye-bye.